What if everything you believe about health is backward, and the real reason your body feels tired, anxious, or out of balance has nothing to do with age, genetics, or motivation, but with the invisible signals you send your body every single day without noticing? Your body is listening long before you are thinking, responding not to intentions, but to habits, posture, breath, light, stress, and rest, shaping your energy, focus, and resilience in ways that feel mysterious only because no one taught you how deeply intelligent your biology truly is. What if the most powerful medicine available to you right now is not hidden inside a laboratory, not sealed in a prescription bottle, but quietly expressed in the way you wake up each day? Before you make a single decision, before your feet touch the ground, your body has already begun interpreting the world. The nervous system does not wait for logic. It listens first for safety. The moment your eyes open, light enters the retina and sends signals deep into the brain, informing internal clocks whether it is time to rise or retreat. This is not metaphor. It is biology in motion, guiding hormone release, alertness, and emotional tone before conscious thought arrives. The body's internal rhythms evolved over millions of years to respond to predictable patterns. Morning light gently suppresses melatonin and invites cortisol to rise, not as a stress hormone, but as a chemical messenger that says it is time to engage with life. When this signal arrives naturally, through gradual light and calm awakening, the brain prepares the body with clarity rather than tension. But when the day begins abruptly, through alarms, screens, and rushed movement, the nervous system receives mixed messages, interpreting urgency as threat. The result is not just a bad mood, but a physiological shift toward vigilance that can linger for hours. Breathing plays a quiet but decisive role in this early dialogue between mind and body. Shallow, rapid breaths activate survival circuits, while slow, deep breathing tells the brain that danger is not present. This shift alters heart rate, blood pressure, and immune signaling in real time. Without realizing it, many people begin their day in a state of mild fight or flight, not because life is dangerous, but because the body has not been given clear signals of safety. Over time, this pattern trains the nervous system to expect tension as a baseline state. Hydration, often overlooked in its simplicity, acts as another early signal of care or neglect. After hours of sleep, the brain and blood are slightly dehydrated, which can impair focus and elevate stress hormones. A simple glass of water restores volume, improves circulation, and supports cellular communication. This is not about wellness trends, but about respecting the physics of the human body, where even small deficits ripple outward into mood, energy, and perception. The pace of the first hour matters, more than the length of the to-do list. When movement is gentle and intentional, muscles warm, joints lubricate, and blood begins to flow efficiently. This sends feedback to the brain that the body is capable and prepared. Science shows that early movement enhances insulin sensitivity and primes cognitive function, improving how the brain processes information later in the day. The body does not require intensity at dawn, it requires reassurance. Even posture influences the conversation unfolding inside you. Standing upright allows the lungs to expand fully, the diaphragm to move freely, and the vagus nerve to send calming signals throughout the body. Slouched posture compresses these systems, subtly reinforcing fatigue and mental fog. These are not aesthetic concerns, but mechanical realities of how structure shapes function. The mind, often blamed for stress, is usually responding faithfully to the signals it receives from the body. When the body begins the day supported rather than shocked, the mind follows with greater patience and clarity. Thoughts slow, reactions soften, decisions become less reactive and more deliberate. This is not willpower, but alignment. Perhaps most important is the absence of self-judgment in these early moments. The brain is highly sensitive to emotional tone upon waking. Harsh self-talk activates the same neural pathways as external threat, while gentle intention reduces limbic reactivity. Compassion toward oneself is not indulgence, it is neurochemical guidance. Daily healthy habits do not begin with discipline, but with listening. The body speaks first in sensations, rhythms, and subtle needs long before symptoms arise. When you learn to respond rather than override, the nervous system relaxes its guard. Health, in this sense, is not something you chase later in the day, but something you allow to emerge quietly, moment by moment, starting with how you choose to meet the morning. Movement is often framed as something we must force upon the body, as if the body itself were resistant to motion. Yet from a biological perspective, movement is the body's native language. Long before words, muscles, tendons, and joints evolved to solve problems through motion. When the body moves, it does not simply burn energy, it generates information. Each contraction sends chemical signals into the bloodstream, substances known as myokines, which travel to the brain, the immune system, and even fat tissue, shaping how these systems behave throughout the day. When movement is gentle and consistent, the nervous system interprets it as a sign of stability rather than threat. The brain receives feedback that the body is capable, responsive, and adaptable. This perception alters emotional regulation in measurable ways. Blood flow increases to regions involved in memory, planning, and emotional balance, while stress-related circuits quiet down. This is why a short walk can feel mentally clarifying, not because problems disappear, but because the brain's internal environment becomes more coherent. The heart responds to movement with remarkable sensitivity. As muscles demand oxygen, the heart adjusts rhythm and force, strengthening itself through use rather than strain. Over time, this improves vascular elasticity, allowing blood vessels to respond more smoothly to changes in pressure. This flexibility reduces the burden on the cardiovascular system and lowers baseline inflammation. The sensation often described as lightness after movement is not imaginary. It reflects improved circulation and oxygen delivery at the cellular level. The brain, too, adapts to movement by increasing the production of growth factors that support learning and resilience. These substances help neurons form new connections and protect existing ones from stress-related damage. Movement, therefore, becomes a form of mental nourishment. In periods of prolonged stillness, these signals decline, and the brain becomes less adaptable, more prone to rumination and fatigue. The modern environment, designed for convenience, often deprives the brain of this essential stimulus. Muscles themselves function as metabolic regulators. When they contract, they improve how the body processes glucose and fats, reducing the strain on the pancreas and liver. This effect does not require intense exertion. Even light activity improves insulin sensitivity, making energy more available and reducing the biochemical stress associated with excess circulating sugar. Over time, this supports stable energy levels and protects against metabolic disease. There is also a deep relationship between movement and emotional processing. The body stores experiences not as memories alone, but as patterns of tension and readiness. Gentle movement helps release these patterns, allowing the nervous system to recalibrate. This is why stretching, walking, or rhythmic motion often brings emotional relief without conscious effort. The body completes cycles that the mind may not yet have language for. Stillness has value, but when it dominates the day, the body begins to interpret it as uncertainty. Prolonged inactivity reduces circulation, dulls sensory feedback, and disrupts the dialogue between brain and body. Over time, this can create a sense of heaviness or restlessness that feels psychological but is rooted in physiology. The solution is not intensity, but regular reminders to the body that movement is still possible and safe. The way we move matters as much as the fact that we move. Movement done with awareness reinforces coordination and proprioception, the sense of where the body exists in space. This awareness strengthens neural maps, improving balance and reducing injury risk. It also anchors attention in the present moment, offering the mind a break from abstraction and worry. When movement becomes an act of respect rather than obligation, the body responds with cooperation rather than resistance. Fatigue softens, joints feel more responsive, and energy returns not as stimulation, but as availability. The body does not ask for perfection, only participation. Through movement, it reminds the brain that life is dynamic, adaptable, and meant to be engaged through sensation and motion rather than endured in stillness. Food enters the body quietly, but its influence is profound and far-reaching. Each bite carries more than calories. It carries signals that shape how cells behave, how hormones respond, and how the brain interprets the world. The digestive system is not a simple processing tube, but a sensory organ, constantly evaluating what arrives and deciding whether it supports balance or demands defense. Long before nutrients reach the bloodstream, the gut is already communicating with the immune system and the brain, translating food into biochemical meaning. Digestion begins even before eating, triggered by sight, smell, and expectation. When meals are rushed or eaten under stress, this preparatory phase is weakened. Saliva decreases, stomach acid production becomes erratic, and the body enters a state of partial digestion that taxes the system. Over time, This pattern contributes to discomfort, inflammation, and a sense of heaviness that extends beyond the stomach. Eating with awareness is not a ritualistic idea. It is a physiological requirement for efficient digestion. The gut hosts trillions of microorganisms that participate in this process. These organisms are not passive passengers, but active contributors to health. They help break down fibers the human body cannot digest on its own, producing compounds that nourish the intestinal lining and reduce inflammation. These same compounds influence neurotransmitter production, shaping mood and motivation. When the diet supports microbial diversity, the gut becomes more resilient, and the brain benefits from clearer signaling. Point 8. Highly processed foods often disrupt this relationship. They provide quick energy, but little instruction for long-term stability. Without fiber and natural complexity, beneficial microbes lose their primary fuel, allowing inflammatory species to dominate. This shift increases gut permeability, enabling substances to enter the bloodstream that trigger immune responses. The result is low-grade inflammation that affects joints, energy levels, and cognitive clarity in subtle but persistent ways. Blood sugar regulation illustrates how food choices influence mental and physical states simultaneously. Meals rich in refined carbohydrates cause rapid spikes in glucose, followed by equally rapid drops. These fluctuations strain hormonal systems and can lead to irritability, fatigue, and cravings that feel psychological but are deeply biochemical. When meals include protein, healthy fats, and fiber, glucose enters the bloodstream gradually, providing sustained energy and mental steadiness. The liver plays a central role in interpreting these signals. It decides whether nutrients are stored, released, or transformed. When overloaded by excess sugar or unhealthy fats, it shifts into a defensive mode, increasing fat storage and reducing metabolic flexibility. Over time, this contributes to metabolic dysfunction that affects the entire body. Supporting the liver through balanced nutrition allows it to perform its regulatory functions with precision rather than strain. The act of eating itself shapes the nervous system. Slow chewing stimulates sensory pathways that signal safety and satisfaction. This reduces the likelihood of overeating and supports proper hormone release. Satiety is not determined by fullness alone, but by the brain's perception that nourishment has been adequate. When this perception is disrupted by speed or distraction, the body continues to seek what it has not fully registered receiving. Hydration also plays a critical role in nutrient transport and cellular function. Water allows vitamins and minerals to reach their destinations and helps remove metabolic waste. Even mild dehydration can impair digestion and cognitive performance, reinforcing the importance of simple, consistent habits. Food, when approached as communication rather than control, restores trust between the body and the mind. The body does not demand perfection, only consistency and respect. When nourishment is aligned with biological needs, inflammation quiets, energy stabilizes, and mental clarity emerges not through effort, but through cooperation. In this way, eating becomes an ongoing dialogue with the body, one that shapes health through daily choices that accumulate into resilience and balance. 98. Rest is often misunderstood as the absence of activity, but biologically it is an active and highly organized process. When the body enters sleep, it does not shut down, it reorganizes. The brain shifts into rhythms that allow repair, recalibration, and integration to occur at a depth that waking consciousness cannot access. Sleep is the time when the body's intelligence speaks most clearly to itself, restoring balance that cannot be achieved through effort or intention alone. As night approaches, the brain begins preparing for this transition by responding to changes in light. Dimming environments signal the pineal gland to release melatonin, a hormone that does not induce sleep directly, but opens the doorway to it. Melatonin lowers body temperature slightly, slows metabolic activity, and tells cells that it is safe to shift from performance into maintenance. Artificial light, especially from screens, interferes with this signal, confusing the brain into delaying rest even when the body is exhausted. Once sleep begins, the brain cycles through stages that serve different purposes. In deeper phases, the glymphatic system becomes active, flushing out metabolic waste that accumulates during waking hours. These waste products, if allowed to build up, impair cognitive function and emotional regulation. This nightly cleansing is one reason why poor sleep is linked to brain fog and irritability. The mind feels heavy not because it is weak, but because it has not been given time to clear its internal pathways. The immune system also relies on sleep to function effectively. During rest, immune cells communicate more efficiently, identifying threats and reinforcing defenses. Inflammatory markers decrease, allowing tissues to repair without constant immune activation. Chronic sleep deprivation keeps the immune system in a state of confusion, increasing susceptibility to illness and slowing recovery. The body cannot defend itself properly when it is never allowed to stand down. Emotionally, sleep serves as a regulator rather than an escape. Experiences from the day are processed, with emotional intensity reduced and meaning extracted. This process allows memories to be stored without carrying the same physiological charge. When sleep is insufficient, emotional experiences remain unresolved, leading to heightened reactivity and stress sensitivity. The feeling of being overwhelmed is often not a reflection of circumstances, but of an underrested nervous system. Hormonal balance is another dimension shaped by rest. Sleep influences appetite-regulating hormones, affecting hunger and satiety signals the following day. When sleep is shortened, hunger hormones increase while satiety hormones decrease, encouraging overeating and cravings for quick energy. This creates a cycle where fatigue drives food choices that further disrupt metabolic balance. Adequate rest breaks this cycle by restoring hormonal coherence. The cardiovascular system also benefits from the rhythmic slowing that occurs during sleep. Heart rate and blood pressure decrease, giving blood vessels a chance to recover elasticity. This nightly reduction in strain protects against long-term cardiovascular stress. When sleep is fragmented or delayed, the heart remains in a semi-alert state, accumulating where that is not immediately felt but gradually expressed over time. Rest is not only about duration, but about quality. A calm pre-sleep routine signals the nervous system to transition smoothly. Gentle activities, reduced stimulation, and consistent timing reinforce circadian rhythms that guide the entire body. These rhythms influence digestion, hormone release, and energy patterns beyond sleep itself. When rhythms are stable, the body anticipates rest and enters it more efficiently. There is also a psychological dimension to rest that is often overlooked. Allowing oneself to sleep without guilt or pressure reduces cognitive resistance that interferes with falling asleep. The brain responds to permission as much as to habit. When rest is framed as essential rather than optional, the nervous system relaxes its vigilance. Sleep, in its quiet complexity, represents the body's trust that it will be allowed to recover. When that trust is honored, clarity returns, resilience strengthens, and the body resumes its work with renewed precision. Rest is not time lost, but time invested in the biological systems that make waking life possible and sustainable. Perhaps the most underestimated habit is the way a person relates to their own inner experience. The body does not distinguish sharply between physical danger and emotional pressure. It responds to both through the same biological pathways. When the mind is persistently harsh, rushed, or self-critical, the nervous system interprets this as an unsafe environment. Stress hormones rise, blood vessels constrict, digestion slows, and immune activity is suppressed. This is not a failure of character, but a survival response designed to handle short bursts of threat, not prolonged self-imposed tension. The stress response is elegant when used briefly. It mobilizes energy, sharpens attention, and prepares the body for action. Problems arise when this response becomes chronic. Continuous activation keeps cortisol elevated, which over time interferes with tissue repair, memory formation, and metabolic balance. The body remains alert when it should be restoring, and vigilant when it should be learning. Many people live in this state without recognizing it, mistaking constant tension for normal functioning. Kindness toward oneself acts as a physiological signal rather than a moral gesture. When internal dialogue softens, the brain shifts activity toward regions associated with regulation and empathy. The vagus nerve, a key pathway connecting brain and body, becomes more active, slowing the heart rate and deepening breath. This shift reduces inflammation and supports immune coordination. Calm is not the absence of problems, but the presence of internal conditions that allow the body to respond efficiently. Breathing is one of the most direct tools for influencing this system. Slow, controlled breathing stimulates parasympathetic pathways that counterbalance stress. Each extended exhale tells the brain that immediate danger has passed. Over time, this retrains the nervous system to recover more quickly from stressors. The body learns that it does not need to remain braced long after a challenge has ended. Emotional awareness also plays a role in physiological health. Suppressed emotions do not disappear. They manifest as muscular tension, altered posture, or digestive discomfort. When emotions are acknowledged without judgment, the nervous system completes its response cycle. This completion prevents the accumulation of unresolved stress patterns that burden the body. Compassion toward one's own emotional state allows these cycles to resolve naturally. The immune system is particularly sensitive to psychological stress. Chronic stress skews immune responses toward inflammation, while reducing the body's ability to fight infections effectively. This imbalance contributes to fatigue and increased vulnerability to illness. When stress is moderated through self-compassion and regulation, immune cells communicate more coherently, supporting resilience rather than reactivity. Self-kindness also influences behavior in subtle ways. When the internal environment feels supportive, people are more likely to make nourishing choices without force. Movement feels inviting rather than obligatory. Food is chosen for support rather than comfort alone. Rest is allowed without guilt. These behaviors reinforce health not through discipline, but through alignment between intention and biology. The brain's plasticity means that these patterns can change at any age. Each moment of patience, each pause before self-criticism, rewires neural pathways toward regulation. Over time, the baseline state of the nervous system shifts. What once felt effortful becomes natural. Calm becomes more accessible not because life has become simpler, but because the body has learned how to return to balance. In this light, kindness toward oneself is not indulgence, but maintenance. It is a way of reducing unnecessary physiological load, so that energy can be directed toward growth and repair. The body responds to this approach with cooperation, easing tension and restoring function. Health emerges not only from what is done to the body, but from how the body is treated internally, moment by moment, through the tone of attention and care that guides the nervous system back toward equilibrium and trust.